Pals, I'm gonna be real. I cannot believe I've been screaming about basically the same shit for the past decade on this platform. So, one of the big things I discussed when I started here on YouTube, and which I still discuss now, are female pedophiles. Now, one of the reasons why female pedophiles get away with everything they get away with is because, first of all, there's this weird kind of socially ingrained rule that women cannot be pedophiles or they cannot be sexual threats in that kind of way, which makes people not only oblivious to female pedophiles, but it makes them think that they don't exist and of. Another thing that goes hand in hand with this is that the few times we see female pedophiles get consequences, it's usually a couple years, if that. A lot of the times the sentences are given in months, which tells you everything. Because truly, it seems like women are still underestimated, even after they've been proven to have caused significant harm to minors. The whole reason that I gave this little tiny monologue for you is because there's a case that is out there and so underreported that there are, I want to say 2 sources that are actually discussing this, when I know for a fact this would be national news had this happened with a man instead of a woman. So, let me stop being vague and I'll tell you exactly what we're talking about. Seattle police arrest woman accused of sexually abusing 7-year-old posting abuse online. So see, normally when I read these types of headlines, I kind of nod and I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that this was mentioned on Twitter. This was on Instagram. I got an email notification from whatever journalist posted about this. No. I had not heard a singular thing. Now granted, I am not the end-all be-all, I don't catch everything, but I really thought that this was going to be some level of national news, and hence why I was surprised I didn't hear about it. And yet, nothing. It says, Seattle police have arrested a 20-year-old woman following an investigation by the Washington Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which claimed she sexually abused a 7-year-old girl and posted the photos online. The investigation started in January when ICAC detectives were made aware of a cyber tip by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. According to the tip, the 20-year-old woman had been discussing sexually abusing the 7-year-old girl with another user on the platform Meet Me, SPD said. I'll say this. As much as back in the day, I was very much a MySpace girly, an MSN girly, on things where technically kind of anyone can add you and you can really have a lot to do with very sketchy people, namely MySpace. There were a lot of adults there who were trying to talk to 13-year-old me. But anyway, let's put that aside. A lot of these kind of social platforms that are on the outskirts of the main ones, and the main ones being Instagram, Twitter, I guess even Pinterest, ? Anyway, the platforms that are outside of that so often become hubs for pedophiles. We saw that even with Kik not super long ago, right? And part of it, I think, is because they're not super at the forefront like other platforms might be. But I think the other part of it is that these platforms cater to a particular demographic in the sense of it would never occur to me to join any of these platforms. And then I was asking myself, why wouldn't I join these? Like, if my friends were on these, why wouldn't I join them? And I think it's almost like a collective, socially unspoken rule that a lot of these platforms, we know exactly what's happening, and that's why none of us are even curious to go on them. So when I saw the Meet Me platform, that came to mind, and I hadn't really thought of it in that kind of way before. But realistically, I think these are the platforms that the FBI or whoever else should really be monitoring, because they're the platforms that there's a reason only particular demographics join them. But anyway, it goes on to say, while investigators were searching the home on September 17th to execute a search warrant, they found child sexual abuse material on the woman's phone, according to SPD. Seattle police said the woman admitted she was the Meet Me user who had been discussing the sexual abuse of a minor, and the user had allegedly admitted to taking illegal images of the child and distributing them online. These platforms, I think, for the most part, are used pretty explicitly for the distribution of CSAM. The thing is also, and I know people don't necessarily care to make this differentiation, but as much as I think the main problem we have with these people is that they're abusing children, they're traumatizing children, that's obviously problem number one. But the other part is that the child has a sort of digital footprint that they didn't choose to put there, in the sense of it's not a kid saying stupid shit on MySpace. It's a kid is being abused, the adult takes pictures of the kid, and then the kid is on the internet, whether they want to be or not. And worst of all, the kid is on the internet for pedophiles, for that kind of market. So the distribution or creation of CSAM is so hurtful and problematic. Beyond it being disgusting, this is also something that will potentially follow someone for life if people aren't able to get the pictures, videos, whatever the hell, taken down. And worst of all, once someone has downloaded those images, videos, whatever, there's no way you can get rid of them unless you find every individual and scrub their computer, assuming they haven't saved anything elsewhere. So the real bottom line is that you are being violated constantly because you can't actually control who has what of you because it's been distributed via these platforms. She was booked into King County Jail for first-degree dealing in depictions of a minor engaged in a sexually explicit conduct and first-degree possession of depictions of a minor engaged in sexually explicit conduct. Since January 2025, SPD's ICAC unit has assisted in more than 75 internet crimes against children. Of those arrests, 3 were women. ICAC detectives say they've learned about 25 to 30% of offenders are women who have been harder to detect and more cautious. So as of right now, this is kind of the only thing that's out there. I found one other article mentioning this, and then that's it. Which, of course, there are plenty of cases, unfortunately, that revolve around this subject, but at the same time, it's hard for me to believe that the coverage wouldn't be different if a man had committed this crime. Does that make sense? I just feel like anytime it's a woman, there has to be some kind of shield, some kind of protection of these criminals. And I just cannot believe. So supposedly, society has evolved, supposedly. And I gotta say, there are a lot of ways in which I don't really see that happening. A lot of the problems we have are the same problems, and the sad thing is that the problem is people, because as soon as people start taking a problem seriously, as soon as people put their voice out there talking about these problems, they're taken more seriously. The fact is that these news are kind of underground news, right? It's not on the front cover of the New York Times. So then less people are aware, less people talk about it, and then the cases remain in darkness, and people again go back to believing women can't be pedophiles. And yet, the victims just exist with no real sense of justice. Mind you, they're not using the name of the criminal. I searched via her name and nothing was popping up, so it's also interesting why none of that has been made public at all. At that point, why wouldn't you wait until you can make the name public as opposed to just saying, a woman was arrested? But anyway, so the reason that I found out about this case in the first place is via this one TikTok. So I want to show you it. Some of it will repeat the information we got here, but I obviously had to fact check it, right?
This is Sierra Robertson on your screen right now. I brought you part of the story and part of her name earlier this week as the lady who has been an after-school STEM instructor in the Seattle area. Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force arrested her after there was an internet tip that came in from a chat service that showed that she was talking to men about sex with babies. She also was trading CSAM, which is the material created from that type of activity. And in her chats, she said she preferred babies to be able to take advantage of them and even looks forward to having her own children so she can molest them as well. Well, when she was arrested, prosecutors asked for a $200,000 bail and multiple charges. The judge initially granted it. However, this week, the judge came back and reduced that bail to $50,000, and she is now at home. She is required to stay at home. She has a monitoring system. Today, I went out to try and get a statement from her employer, and her employer is Playwell Technologies. They're out of California. They have facilities all over the country. I asked them today to send a statement. At this point right now, they have refused to respond in any way, shape, or form. And for those of you who followed for a bit, if you remember the Archbishop Murphy story with one of their teachers who got in trouble, the Archbishop Murphy became the story, and the next day after I posted my story, all the news stations were there out front. They had to have security out front, and it was because they failed to step up and simply say, we are appalled by the allegations, we are with the victims at every step, and this person is no longer affiliated with us. That's the basic standard. I just wrote it for you. That's really all you have to do. Just write what I just said, hit send, and you've solved it. So I'm going to give them till Monday morning to put together a statement before we put out the entire story. We're also going to put out all the charging docs. And I think you'll see here pretty quickly some of the other local media outlets getting on this story as well. I've got a big update on Sierra Robertson, the after-school program STEM instructor who was hired by Playwell Technologies, but recently was arrested by Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force after it was discovered she was discussing with men online, having sex with babies. It appears she's done this in the past. And wanted these men to participate in these acts. So as I said yesterday, Playwell had not sent over a statement, and they sent one over today, and it's actually a pretty good statement. So I'm going to read it to you now. I'll also include a link in this Monday with the full story, but I want to get this out because I saw people starting to light their Instagram on fire. So this comes from Meredith Bowen. She is the Vice President of Administration and Human Resources. And it reads, "Thank you for your patience awaiting my response. We were as shocked and utterly disgusted to hear about her charges and alleged crimes against children as we are sure others are. The following is our company statement regarding the arrest of Sierra Robertson. Sierra Robertson was hired by Playwell Technologies in November of 2023 after passing a thorough background check on September 18th of 2025, that's this month. Upon learning and confirming the disturbing charges against her, her employment was terminated immediately. At no point during her time with Playwell did we receive any complaints or concerns from participants, parents, clients, or other staff. To the best of our knowledge, the charges were related to her personal life and are not connected to her work with Playwell in any way." That is true. So I did mention that investigators used her employment or prosecutors used that as part of the argument for such a high bail, but they did not insinuate that her work there and this had overlapped in the charges. "Please know that the safety and well-being of the children we teach is always our top priority, and we remain committed to upholding the highest standards in our programs and instructors." So I will post this draft of this Monday as well. I'm going to take her phone number off because I don't like to put that out when companies do put out a statement. But others who I may have to call when your employee gets it, this is how to do it. This is exactly how to do it.
Okay, so based on the information we have, which granted is not all that much information, I think it's interesting that Playwell didn't feel the pressure to post something publicly. I mean, they responded to Steve, and I'll link his page down below. But the fact that there was no feeling of urgency in posting a statement or telling the news, right? Because you wouldn't want your company to be associated with a pedophile and make it seem like you have no response to it. But that goes back to what I said before, my theory, which I don't even think is a theory considering it's proven, but the fact that female pedophiles are let off so easily that companies that are connected to them don't even feel like they have to rush to be like, hey, this has nothing to do with us, we don't support this behavior, she got fired immediately, whatever. Which I think is quite telling, right? Because if it were a man, I think within 10 minutes they'd be like, hey, this guy's already been fired, we don't stand by this, we've had no complaints, blah, 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 whatever. And that's why I keep touching on this subject, as uncomfortable as it is, because realistically, nothing has actually changed in the past decade that I've been talking about this. Not a single goddamn thing. And it's really actually concerning, especially at the age that I am now. I'm in my 30s. Plenty of people I know have children. And it's like, now it feels also closer to home because of that. Because back when I was 20, I could imagine sending my kid to school and being terrified for that. But now that I actually know people who are sending their kids to school, I'm doubly concerned because this is not the standard of safety we want. And I don't know why that's so difficult. There's so much focus on things being genderless, whatever. But then when it comes to crimes against children, especially sexual crimes, then all of a sudden, if it's a woman, who cares? Can someone explain to me the logic? I truly do not understand. But anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'll keep you posted on this. I actually hope there is an update to this story so I can tell you, okay, this is actually what's going to happen, because as was said, she's on house arrest. Her bail was decreased significantly. So I have very little faith, but I hope that something will come out of this, and especially her communications online, because if there is one communication like this, I tend to think there are more. And aside from that, I really do hope that they try and follow the leads of who she was distributing this CP/CSAM to, right? Because the people downloading it are also by default pedophiles, and those are people that I guess we can kind of start quote unquote tracking, and by we I mean the police. Because not only is this concerning, but it makes me think that if you're downloading this material, it's also possible that you are doing more than just that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.